Hello, friends. Today we'll be looking at Everything Begins Within You by Epictetus. This is one of my favorite quotes because it reminds us that we are in control of our own destiny. It means that everything that happens to us, whether good or bad, starts with a decision or thought we had beforehand. In other words, our past decisions and thoughts have consequences that affect our future. And if we want to change our future, we need to start by changing our thoughts and decisions today. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like things were just happening to you? Like you had no control over your life at all? It can be easy to feel like a victim sometimes, like everything that happens to us is out of our control. But this quote from Epictetus reminds us that this couldn't be further from the truth. It all starts with us. We can choose to see ourselves as victims of circumstances beyond our control, or we can take responsibility for our lives and shape our own destinies. We can choose to focus on the negative and let it control us, or we can choose to focus on the positive and use it to motivate us. It's all up to us. So let us take a closer look at what this quote means and how we can apply it to our lives. First, let's break down the quote itself. Everything begins within you. What does this mean exactly? Well, it means that everything that happens to us, everything we experience, think, say, or do, it all starts with a thought or decision we make. Our thoughts and decisions, whether conscious or unconscious, create a ripple effect that eventually leads to our experiences. Think about a time when you made a decision that had a significant impact on your life. Maybe it was deciding to pursue a certain career path, move to a new city, or end a toxic relationship. Whatever it was, you made that decision based on the information and beliefs you had at the time. And as a result of that decision, your life took a certain direction. On the other hand, think of a time when you experienced something that you didn't like. Maybe it was a setback at work, a health issue, or the death of a loved one. These experiences were the result of decisions made in the past, both by yourself and by others. This quote is a reminder that we can't just blame external factors or other people for our problems. Everything that happens to us is the result of decisions that were made in the past. And that means that we have the power to change our future by making different decisions today. But you might be thinking, how can we possibly be in control when there are so many things that are out of our control? For example, we can't control the actions of other people, unexpected events like natural disasters, or even our own past. That's true. There are many things that are out of our control, but what we can control is how we react to these things. How we interpret and respond to events is ultimately up to us. Take, for example, the situation of a job loss. Losing a job can be a terrible experience, but it can also be an opportunity for growth and change. Some people might see a job loss as a disaster, while others might see it as a chance to find a better job or pursue a different career path. It all depends on how we choose to interpret the situation. Similarly, the actions of other people are also not under our control, but how we respond to those actions is up to us. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, you can choose to get angry and respond by honking and yelling, or you can choose to let it go and not let it ruin your day. The same is true for the events that happen in the world around us. We can choose to focus on the negative and let it bring us down, or we can choose to focus on the positive and find ways to make a difference. It's all a matter of perspective. So while we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control how we react to these things. And that's where the power lies. The next thing to consider is that this quote encourages us to take responsibility for our lives. It reminds us that we are in control of our own destiny, and that we can't just blame external factors or other people for our problems. Instead, we need to take responsibility for our actions and the consequences that follow. Taking responsibility can be difficult, especially when we're faced with challenges or setbacks. It's easy to want to blame someone or something else for our problems. But this quote challenges us to look within ourselves and take ownership of our decisions and their consequences. By taking responsibility, we can learn from our mistakes and make better decisions in the future. We can also gain a sense of control over our lives and become more resilient in the face of adversity. But how exactly do we take responsibility for our lives? Well, it starts with being aware of the thoughts and decisions that we're making in the moment. When we become aware of our thoughts and decisions, we can start to question whether they're serving us or holding us back. We can ask ourselves whether our thoughts and decisions are aligned with our values and goals, or if they're based on fear, anger, or other negative emotions. Once we've identified the thoughts and decisions that aren't serving us, we can start to change them. This can be a slow and difficult process, but it's definitely possible. With practice, we can learn to think in a more positive and constructive way, which will lead to better decisions and ultimately, a better life. Finally, let's talk about the benefits of taking responsibility for our lives and our experiences. As we mentioned earlier, it gives us the power to shape our own destiny. When we realize that everything begins within us, we can start to take control of our lives and make positive changes. Instead of being a victim of circumstance, we can become the hero of our own story. Taking responsibility also gives us the ability to forgive ourselves and others. When we understand that we are responsible for our thoughts and actions, we can start to let go of any resentment or bitterness we may be holding onto. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning or excusing bad behavior, but it does mean releasing the negative emotions that are holding us back. Moreover, by taking responsibility for our lives, we become more compassionate towards ourselves and others. We start to understand that everyone makes mistakes and that it's part of the human experience. We also become more forgiving because we know that we are all doing the best we can with the knowledge and abilities we currently possess. In conclusion, everything begins within you. Everything we experience, think, say, or do starts with a thought or decision we make. While there are many things that are out of our control, we always have the power to choose how we respond to these things. It is up to us to decide whether we want to be a victim of circumstance or the hero of our own story. So friends, I encourage you to take responsibility for your life and make positive changes today. Start by becoming aware of your thoughts and decisions and asking whether they're serving you. Let go of any resentment or bitterness you may be holding onto and forgive yourself and others. With practice, you can learn to think in a more positive and constructive way, which will lead to better decisions and ultimately a better life. And remember, everything begins within you. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a comment below and subscribe so you won't miss any new videos. Have a wonderful day. The world may feel chaotic, unfair, out of your control, but to Epictetus, true power never came from changing the external world. It came from mastering your inner world. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a comment below and subscribe so you won't miss any new videos. Have a wonderful day. Your mind is the starting point of your freedom, your peace, your strength, and your destiny. Epictetus teaches that external events are neutral. They have no inherent power over us. What matters is how we interpret them, how we respond, and how we act. A setback doesn't define you. Your reaction does. An insult doesn't hurt you unless you give it permission. A crisis is not the end. It can be your beginning. This idea shifts the center of control from the outside world to your inner life. The Stoic does not blame fate. He takes full responsibility for his inner state. When you believe that change starts within, you stop waiting for external approval to feel worthy. You stop needing perfect conditions to act with purpose. You stop blaming others for your emotional storms. You begin cultivating what Epictetus calls the only true good, virtue, a soul aligned with reason, discipline, and wisdom. This mindset gives you resilience in suffering, clarity in confusion, and peace in uncertainty. Epictetus believed that the mind is the ultimate filter through which we experience life. If your thinking is distorted, life will feel like a burden. But if your thinking is disciplined, life becomes a training ground for strength. Every transformation starts with a decision. I will no longer be ruled by habit, fear, or anger. I will choose discipline. I will choose virtue. Epictetus reminds us that you cannot control what happens, but you can control how you meet it. And that small space between stimulus and response is where your freedom lives. You begin to change not by changing the world, but by changing your relationship to it. You start growing not when things get easier, but when you become stronger. You take back your life when you stop waiting for things to happen and begin to act from within.